Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pricing Guys. I'm Michael.
And I'm Abby.
Today, we're going to talk about a really common question that we get all the time, and it's where should pricing sit in the organization? Should it be sales? Should it be finance? Or should it be marketing? Who should own the function? Abby, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I come back to like the core principles around pricing, and we say, good pricing is based on insights from finance. What's going on with the financials of the company. Number two, how are we creating value? And value is typically created within marketing. And then number three, what's going on in the market. And obviously that's more the sales team and who's close to the sales team. And I think where that function should sit, it really depends on the organization and where they are in their life cycle.
I think it doesn't really, a lot of people put a lot of weight on this. I don't think it really matters too much because I think it's more about the person.
Oh, we're going to vehemently disagree on this one now, Michael.
I don't think so. I think it depends on the. It's less about it can sit in any of the functions, and you're right. It depends on where you are in the maturity, but I've seen it successful in all of those different functions. It's more about do you have the right person in the organization who can work cross functionally around those partners, who can work with sales, who can work with finance, who can work with marketing to make sure that they're a true partner in the sense in that they're driving kind of the agenda forward.
I mean, there's one thing. Okay, let's just play that out. Let's say you have this amazing person in finance, right? And you're saying they're the absolute best in terms of partnering with the other departments.
Okay.
Now, you're saying that this individual, when they get a task that our organization needs to increase margin, that when they go towards setting pricing, they're not going to come across with a slanted view on what needs to be done, that they'll be able to be balanced to understand what's going on with the customer, what's going on in the market, what's going on, and to be able to reasonably implement.
No, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
You just said the right person in any department.
I'm saying
can do pricing as long as they can cross-functionally collaborate.
No. I'm saying that what I'm talking about is what department should the pricing function live in?
And you said it could live anywhere.
It can live. I said, yeah, absolutely. No way. Absolutely, it can live in finance. I've seen it very successfully live in finance in a lot of different organizations. There are commercial finance organizations that exist out there that have a really good view that can work with the sales team to understand what the implications are from a sales side. They can work with the marketing team to understand that value, and they can do the math and the financial aspects of it as well. There's lots of organizations that have been able to successfully do that.
Yeah, I'd really challenge that. And, I'd love to talk about some of those organizations because I think and there's nothing wrong with this, and this is why we have functions, because you're describing someone who's operating like a CEO that is in the finance department.
But I guess what's the difference if that person sits in the sales department or they sit in the marketing department? What's the difference?
I guess, and this is where I come back to, it depends on where the organization is. So, for example, I think if you're an organization that has no controls in place, you don't really have a good idea on what people are quoting deals out at, everything's kind of willy-nilly, finance makes a lot of sense to put that function in, because you need to put that control in place. You need to put some margin hurdles in place. You need to put some process in place. And that's where the marshals going to be.
Hold on. So
and
now,
they can function at that level. And that's what the organization needs at that time.
So hold on. So now all of a sudden you're saying that it's okay for pricing to sit in finance.
At a certain point that the organization is sitting at.
So now, how is my statement that it can sit anywhere wrong? Because it can't sit in finance there.
I'm saying at that time, but ideally organizations don't stay at one level, they evolve. So let me tell you that next level of evolving. We get to a point that we've got finance, they got everything locked down. We're doing everything at a 40% margin. And then we get into these kind of discussions. Well, I'm not going to approve that because it's decretive to this business. It's at 37. And we start to say, well, okay, here's what's the problem. You obviously don't understand the market. There's different customer segments out there. There's different needs. There's different packages that we need to be handling these, directing to these customers. And there's different financial expectations that need to go around that.
So where should the
Now,
function
it
sit
is
then?
at that point in time, once we have that that control in place, now we start getting into, hey, where do we have those insights? Where can we understand those insights? And then we get into those discussions around, well, maybe, sales has more of those insights and can understand that because we got good processes in place. Now, we got good processes in place. We know the markets that we want to go after. We can triangulate it. But let me tell you where that falls apart. Well, suddenly we've got this fox in the henhouse pricing. We're hunting after everything. They can justify everything because they're the closest to the customer. And we've got our value creation team or marketing or product development saying, what the hell? Why are we discounting our product like this? Why are we positioning the product like this? Why are we undercutting our value? And then, sometimes it naturally migrates into marketing or where that value creation is occurring. But I think ultimately where it gets to based on the evolution of an organization is, a team, an actual team that's sitting out there and that can work between these departments, but can bring that specialized strategy to it and bring those teams together.
But I think you're totally misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm not saying
Okay.
that the pricing function can sit in any department at any point in time.
You just don't want to define what that point in time is?
I'm not saying you have to. That point in time is going to be different for every single organization. It's going to be different for a lot of different industries. It's going to be different for what you're selling and how big the organization is and who the people are. It's very, very different depending on what the organization is. What I'm saying is that regardless of where the function sits, what's more important is to have someone or a team, whether it's a person or a team or a group of people, that they have to have that mentality that they take a balanced approach to the problem that they're solving. I think absolutely what you're talking about when you have to look at it from the point of the market, what's happening with the competition, where is my price relative to the rest of the market? How much value am I driving? What do my financials look like? You have to keep all three of those things in mind when you're making these decisions. And even when you talk about your little evolution of like, okay, you're here, you're here, you're here, just the best pricing organizations still look at all three of those things. Like going back to your example, if you're out of control and finance takes over and they're trying to gain control, that's great. And you may be biased a little bit more to finance and maybe they put some margin targets, but you can't ignore the market. You can't ignore the value that's being created. If all of a sudden, and that's where it falls apart. We've seen finance organizations come out and say, and this is they didn't have a pricing function, but I remember they came out and they said we need a 40% margin. And they were just like, okay. And the sales team they couldn't sell anything. And everyone's getting angry. They're saying, well, why can't we sell anything? Because the team had decreed that, hey, all of a sudden we need a 40% margin. And they lost sight of, well, maybe when you're selling into a discount customer, a commodity like product, maybe you can't be making a 40% margin. When you have a big value added product, maybe you could be charging more than 40% margin. And they were missing opportunities. So I think no matter where the function sits, where you are along that journey, it can change. But the person or the team that's in place, that is way more important than where it sits on an org chart. And I feel like a lot of the time we get worked up about these org charts and where it sits in an org chart and who reports to who. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's who the people are and what their mentality is to actually drive change and look at the problems.
I guess I'm with you, yes and no. And this will cross over into some HR, people, organizational behavior stuff.
Fair?
But how I look at it, and I hear what you're saying, that balanced approach, I want a partner and whatnot. I find that you get, often will get someone who's like, we have to do this collaboration, we have to partner, but they just don't have that core business sense. They can't operate at the same level with someone who's out there in the market and have that detailed discussion. They can't operate on the same level with someone that's creating the value. So what ends up happening is this person will say, hey, I'm partnering. I'm doing this, that, and the other, and we're all holding hands. But what we're getting is a lot of order taking that because this person does not, or team does not have that sophistication to have those granular discussions at that level. And it's a lot, right? Because we're asking them to go across, be a master. Now you're not only a master of finance, or you're not only a master of marketing, you're also a master of sales. You're also a master of how this commercial strategy is implemented. That is a big, tall order. And we have someone saying, okay, you're going to partner. Oftentimes it's kind of reporting. You go around, okay, what do you think about this? 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 And then we get kind of this pricing by democracy, right? I'm going to be all things to all people.
I've seen it for sure.
And it turns into this watered down stuff that we get out on the other side. We execute it in the market, and we're like, what were we thinking? And what's even better is when we get those, the feedback from the market, no one wants to take responsibility because it's all this kind of something everyone's voted on. So I hear you that ideally that's what you want, but is it realistic? Is it reasonable? Or are we just setting up someone to go out there and be a politician?
Yeah, but I would make the argument that whether that group sits in finance or whether that group's where they sit in the organization, you're talking about a philosophical question about the effectiveness of a pricing team and the fact that that pricing team really needs to have all of these skills. And you know what? In small organizations, you can't expect that all of a sudden they're going to hire, a 5-person pricing team, and all of a sudden they're going to have all these different skills, because we haven't even talked about the data analysis and all those things. But you can't expect that. Much like you have a $2 billion organization, you can't expect one person to do all the pricing at the same time. So I think it's really important that, yes, even though what you're saying could happen, I think we have to make sure that we get the right people in place, and we get people who have those broad skills and who can really drive the business forward and make those decisions and take responsibility. Because absolutely what you're talking about is more so, someone who's probably not fit to run a function, or someone who's not the right fit. And I can make that same argument for a sales leader. I can make the same argument for a finance leader. It doesn't really matter.
But it's much easier for a sales leader or a finance leader because they've got clear objectives that don't cut across the organization. Like I'm trying to maximize profitability. I'm trying to maximize margin. I'm trying to maximize customer conversion. Whereas this individual, it's much tougher. And my KPIs go across all the departments, and I need to get a read from all the departments and try to optimize.
So what you're saying is we're looking for a unicorn.
I think
a good pricing person is a unicorn.
No. I'm not saying it's not a unicorn, but I'm saying that it's much easier when an organization gets to a certain level, setting it up as its own independent function makes it much easier for that function.
That's fair. It's fair. I think this is a great example of, last couple shows we've done, we tend to agree and nod at each other a lot. I think this is a good one because we don't always agree, as many people can attest to. We don't always agree on everything. And I think this is where we might have a little bit of a different slant, but I think both views are fair.
Yeah.
But I think it gives me an idea. I think for one of the future shows, we talked a lot about these pricing personas and these people. We've met a lot of pricing people over the years. I think we might be due for a show where we talk about kind of hear the different people that we see in the organization. Might be a fun one.
Yeah, and I think it'll be useful because viewers can watch and see what is our team look like, and given what our team looks like, hey, what are some of the implications? So look forward to seeing you next time.
See you next time. Thanks.
Thanks.